You know what? When people ask me that, I always tell them the same cliche. Who do I want to win? The fans. Because I just wanted to put on a good show. I know a bunch of these guys are friends of mine.
Barry Weiss almost died after walking away from the most-watched show in A&E history. He built a $10 million fortune, survived a terrible incident that put him in intensive care for 2 months, and still managed to make a comeback at 75 years old. But now, things are no longer the same for the star. So what really happened to Barry Weiss after Storage Wars? And who really was the man outside Storage Wars? Join us as we unravel what really happened to Barry Weiss after Storage Wars. The millionaire before the fame. Storage Wars is easily one of the most watched American shows. But long before he became known as the collector on the show, Barry Weiss had already made his money and was comfortably known as a millionaire. But how did he get there? Young Barry grew up in San Fernando Valley, California, in a working-class household. Money was not so easily seen, so he took every job he could find as a teenager. He mowed lawns, washed cars, and vended food at Dodger Stadium. But it was those early jobs that taught him how to read people, pitch fast, and close deals. After high school, Barry moved through a series of blue-collar gigs before landing work on a second-hand merchandise liquidation dock in 1972. That was his turning point. He discovered storage unit auctions, realized he had a sharp instinct for spotting undervalued items inside them, and never looked back. With what little amount he could get, he began buying unclaimed lots, stacks of old merchandise, returned retail goods, repossessed freight, and reselling everything he could move while keeping the pieces that caught his eye. 20 years passed quickly, and he had built that side hustle into a full operation. He had warehouses across Southern California. There were crews processing the merchandise. He had grown so much that he had consulting contracts with retail giants like Walmart and Target, helping them liquidate unsellable inventory while quietly acquiring the best pieces for himself. Barry Weiss was a real businessman. Even with the success of this venture, he opened a retail storefront, Nugget Sporting Goods, in the San Fernando Valley in 1988, which became a local landmark for sports memorabilia collectors. But the real foundation of his wealth came from a business entirely different from his. For more than 25 years, Barry and his brother Joey ran Northern Produce, a wholesale fruit and vegetable import-export company that their grandfather had originally founded. The brother duo was apparently very good at this complicated business. Over their 25 years of operation, they built the company into a successful enterprise that generated substantial wealth for both of them. By the time Barry was in his 50s, he had accumulated enough wealth that he never needed to work another day in his life if he chose not to. When Barry and his brother eventually sold their produce company, Barry found himself in an unusual position. He was financially secure, relatively young and healthy, and completely uninterested in traditional retirement. He had spent his entire adult life working, dealing with the stresses and demands of running a business, and now, suddenly, he had unlimited free time and resources, but no clear direction for what to do with them. That's when Storage Wars appeared. The connection to Storage Wars came through a friend. Tom Beers, a television producer and narrator who became the executive producer of Storage Wars, was an old friend of Barry's. Beers knew Barry had never actually bought a storage unit competitively before, but he also knew Barry's personality, his collection instincts, and his ability to hold a room. He invited Barry to join the show. Barry said yes, more or less on a whim. Joining the show was one thing, dominating it was another. So, how did a wealthy, retired produce businessman end up becoming one of reality TV's most beloved personalities? And what made him so different from everyone else on Storage Wars? From collector to television personality, Barry had always been a collector, even when he was running the produce business. In his wide range of interests, he collected vintage cars and motorcycles, acquiring an impressive collection of rare and unusual vehicles. He also collected antique toys, quirky memorabilia, unusual artifacts, and basically anything that caught his eye and seemed interesting. His home and garage were filled with the accumulated treasures of decades of collecting. For someone like Barry, who enjoyed the hunt as much as the acquisition, storage auctions were the perfect form of entertainment. So he began attending storage auctions in Southern California, and it was at these auctions that he crossed paths with other regular buyers who would eventually become his Storage Wars castmates. He met Dave Hester, Daryl Sheets, and the others who made their living buying and reselling storage unit contents. When Storage Wars premiered in December 2010, Barry arrived on screen as something the format had not seen before. A buyer who was clearly already wealthy, clearly not dependent on the show for income, and clearly there because he found the whole thing entertaining. That financial independence shaped everything about how he played the game. A lawsuit filed by co-star Dave Hester would later reveal that Barry earned $25,000 per episode, over $650,000 per season, before bonuses. When the producers of Storage Wars were casting their show, they wanted a variety of personalities and approaches to storage auctions. They had the aggressive bidder, Dave Hester, the treasure hunter, Daryl Sheets, and the young couple trying to build a business, Jared and Brandy. But they also wanted someone who represented pure entertainment value, and Barry Weiss was that guy. Barry agreed to appear on Storage Wars for the first 4 seasons, from 2010 through 2013. During those seasons, he became arguably the most popular cast member on the show. By the second season, Storage Wars had become the most-watched program in A&E network history, pulling an estimated 5.1 million viewers for its premiere. Barry was, of course, the breakout. Unlike the others, his appearance was always flashy. He would show up to auctions in retrofitted vehicles. Sometimes he brought psychics and night vision goggles to storage units. There were times when he even deployed a remote-controlled helicopter camera to scout lockers before bidding. His charm was off the charts, delivering one-liners that made co-stars and viewers alike laugh out loud. He was not the most aggressive buyer on the lot, but he was the most watchable one. His fan base was particularly popular among women. Reports even described how, during filming, some women regularly approached his co-star Dave Hester just to pass their phone numbers to Barry. He was a collector who happened to be on television, and that distinction showed. His love for collectibles was particularly evident when he openly admitted that he made less money than his co-stars because he refused to part with most of what he found. Apparently, his goal was not profit, but the hunt. He stayed through season 4 as agreed, but then in June 2013, Barry announced that he was done. He left the show, but would the network let him go so easily? Exist and recasting. Barry's reason for leaving was simple and entirely in character. He said he wanted to leave the show while it was still popular and that he had had enough. He went back to doing what he loved most, being a professional world-class slacker, traveling, collecting, riding motorcycles, and living on the fortune he had built before Storage Wars entered the picture. The producers of the show were very unsatisfied with the departure, and there was no way they'd lose their most valuable star just like that. In February 2014, the network announced a spin-off, Buried Treasure, built entirely around Barry. 8 episodes aired, but the broader audience did not show up in the kind of numbers the network needed, so the show was canceled. The network understood Barry's importance, but why did the spin-off fail? Well, Barry's appeal on Storage Wars came from friction. There was a contrast between his laid-back style and the competitive pressure of bidding against aggressive rivals. Without that friction, Barry's would not lose his charm, but the engine that powered it would disappear. He was a scene stealer by nature. He needed the competition. The solo show was not competitive, and it removed scenes worth stealing, so naturally, the spin-off was a failure. A&E did not give up, however, and in 2015, a second attempt came with Storage Wars. Barry Strikes Back. There were 10 episodes. Barry and his close friend Kenny Crossley revisited memorable moments from Storage Wars, mixing commentary with new short adventures. The second spin-off performed adequately for its core audience, but did not expand beyond it, and was not renewed. Instead, it got cancelled, too. But Barry did not disappear entirely. He appeared in a documentary called Beverly Hills Garage, The Bruce Meyer Project, about real estate investor and renowned car collector Bruce Meyer. It was a world Barry had been part of privately for years. Rare vehicles, serious collectors, significant money. The show had not manufactured him. It had simply pointed a camera at what was already there. By early 2019, Barry was already in his late 60s. He had retired from television, but was still collecting, still riding motorcycles, and living comfortably in his Laughlin Park home in Los Angeles, one of the city's oldest and most private residential enclaves. He had everything. Then came a tragic Wednesday afternoon in April 2019. A car pulled out of a parking space. What happened next would put him out of action for months. The crash that changed everything. The day was 24th April 2019. Barry Weiss and his friend Jamie Robinson were riding motorcycles through the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles. It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon ride, but nothing about it was ordinary. As they rode along, a vehicle came out of a parking bay and directly into their path. It happened so fast, and by the time they realized, it was too late for either of them to step on the brakes. They crashed into the rear of the vehicle. Shortly afterwards, Jaime posted from a hospital bed describing his own injuries. He suffered a broken knee, elbow, and wrist, but according to him, he was the lucky one. Barry, he wrote, was much worse. He suffered a serious chest trauma, coupled with an equally serious leg trauma. The kind of injuries that put a 68-year-old man in intensive care. TMZ obtained the actual 911 call from the driver of the car. On the recording, the driver reported being hit from behind and described emergency responders already attending to someone on the street. Jamie later shared photos and footage from the crash scene on social media, including video of Barry being loaded into an ambulance. His Storage Wars co-stars responded immediately. Laura and Dan Dotson, Casey Nazoda, and others posted publicly, asking fans to send support. Barry was taken to the hospital and directly placed in the intensive care unit. The ICU was his home for the next 2 months. During that time, he underwent multiple surgeries and procedures to repair internal damage, reconstruct his damaged back, and address a fractured femur. Sources close to him told TMZ that he was alert between surgeries and focused on getting home, but the road was long. To make matters worse, there were reports that Barry had also suffered a stroke during his time in the hospital. Everyone thought Barry's chapter had come to an end, and it wasn't even absurd to think that way. 2 months in intensive care, multiple major surgeries, and a stroke is easily the kind of medical ordeal that ends careers and leaves permanent marks. Barry was already 68 years old to begin with. He had already stopped showing up on television once by choice. So, there was every reason to believe it was simply the end of a chapter. But instead of that, during his recovery, Barry took on a brand ambassador role for Sherwood Valley Casino in Willits, Northern California. The arrangement gave him something to do, a reason to stay connected to the public, and a platform that did not require the physical demands of production. He had every reason to disappear, but he didn't. He appeared in marketing campaigns, showed up at casino events, and stayed visible on his own terms while his body rebuilt itself. By 2021, Barry was firmly back on his feet. He had survived the crash, the surgeries, the stroke, and the long, painful work of rehabilitation. At this point, he had everything: a $10 million net worth, a historic home in Los Angeles, a car collection, a godson named Jesse James, 2 children, Jack and Julie, and reportedly a young grandson also named Jack. He had rebuilt after harder things than a canceled spin-off. The question now was not whether he could return to television. The question was how he would make the entrance. So how exactly did Barry Weiss choose to come back? The triumphant return. Season 14 of Storage Wars premiered on November 2nd, 2021. In the opening scene, viewers saw an unfamiliar vehicle rolling slowly onto an auction lot. It was a 1939 Lincoln Zephyr, heavily customized, low to the ground, finished in a dark metallic color, and fitted with a flamethrower exhaust system. The cast watched it arrive, but nobody could guess who was behind the wheel. One of them even said the car was a Batmobile. When the window came down and his co-stars saw his face, the reactions were as expected. 70-year-old Barry emerged from the car like a wrestling champion. His return for Season 14 was warmly received by longtime fans and introduced him to viewers who had found the show after his original run. Season 15 followed in 2023, with 24 episodes airing and concluding in August of the same year. Barry appeared throughout, continuing the pattern he had established in the previous season: unpredictable bids, unusual vehicles, and a running commentary on everything happening around him. The Storage Wars Fandom Wiki now officially lists Barry as a cast member from Seasons 1 through 4 and from Season 14 to present. The 2-decade gap in the middle is simply part of his record now. Then he disappeared again. The 16th season of Storage Wars premiered on June 7, 2025, with a notable change. The show moved to an hour-long format and welcomed back Dave Hester, who had been absent since Season 12. Barry Weiss was not listed in the cast. A&E did not announce his absence, and Barry himself offered no public explanation. Fans who had watched his Season 14 entrance on a flamethrower-equipped Lincoln now had no idea whether the exit was permanent or temporary. The reasonable assumption for much of the season was that Season 15 was his finale, a last run on his own terms, without a dramatic goodbye. He skipped Season 16 without a word. But Barry is unpredictable after all, as he has now reappeared again. Where is Barry now, and what is his fate? Where he stands now. The 17th season of Storage Wars premiered on February 28, 2026, and surprisingly, Barry Weiss was in the cast. At 75 years old, after skipping an entire season without explanation, he came back. Again. The network accurately described his presence in Season 7 as adding unpredictability to the auctions, which was the network's formal way of saying that Barry Weiss showed up and did whatever Barry Weiss does. A question had hung over Season 16. Fans wondered whether his absence was a goodbye, and whether it was health or schedule-related, or simply a decision he made because he felt like it. Barry's estimated net worth still sits at $10 million, and the bulk of that figure happened before Storage Wars came into the picture. The show added to it significantly. The Hester lawsuit revealed Barry earned $25,000 per episode, each season paying out just over $800,000 in total. His personal life has remained private throughout. Fans know that he is divorced. His 2 children have stayed entirely out of the public eye. His house in Los Angeles' historic neighborhoods is valued between $3 and $4 million. His car collection, which has included custom-built vehicles, museum pieces, and rare American classics, is estimated to be worth around $500,000. He still collects antiques and still rides motorcycles. What has not changed across all of it is the basic structure of how Barry operates. He still decides what he wants to do, he does it on his own timeline, and he does not explain himself. He left Storage Wars first because he just wanted to leave. He returned in 2021 because he wanted to return. He skipped season 16 without any explanation. He came back for season 17 without fuss. The lawsuit filed by Dave Hester in 2012 alleged that the show's producers made Storage Wars more interesting by planting items to manufacture dramatic finds. Nobody knows if that's true. But whether or not that was reality, it did not taint Barry's role on the show. He was that one person who couldn't care less about his value dropping because he knew it wouldn't. Even if there are things hidden in the units by the producers, it did not affect his entertainment value. He could show up to an auction and make the lot more interesting even before a single unit was opened. The items were important, but they were only secondary. Barry was the main character. As of 2026, Barry Weiss is 75 years old. He has survived more than most people his age, built more than most people at any age, and returned to a television show more times than almost anyone who left one at its peak. He is back in the show on his terms. He is still a collector. And if anyone knows Barry well, then they know that whatever will happen next is something nobody will see. But fans are waiting to see the next big move. Did Barry skip season 16 because of his health? And when he finally leaves for the last time, what would happen to Storage Wars? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will love it.